Jake had always been the kind of man who lived life on his own terms. At 48, he'd built a solid career, bought a home in a quiet neighborhood, and made peace with the fact that marriage just might not be in the cards for him. That is, until he met Emily. She was 30, glowing with life, energy, and ambition. From the moment he saw her laughing over a cup of coffee at a small cafe downtown, something in him shifted. She had this lightness about her, this warmth that pulled him in. She caught his eye as he spoke with a business partner over lunch, and when their gazes met, she smiled. That was all it took. He introduced himself, one thing led to another, and within weeks they were seeing each other almost every day. Emily was unlike anyone Jake had ever dated. She loved late-night walks, impromptu weekend road trips, and leaving him little notes in unexpected places. Her presence made him feel younger, alive in a way he hadn't felt in years. Even his friends, who had always described him as guarded, started to notice the change. But they also warned him, "She's 18 years younger, Jake. Be careful. That's a whole generation apart." Jake didn't care. He was in love. And when he proposed 2 years later, Emily said yes with tears in her eyes. Emily worked in human resources at a mid-sized tech company. No matter how often Jake hinted that she could quit and enjoy a more relaxed lifestyle, she always refused. "I need to have my own thing," she'd say, standing in front of the mirror while pulling on a pair of jeans, fastening them with one hand, a hairbrush in the other. Jake admired her ambition. She didn't want to depend on him, and he respected that. "We hired someone new today," she said one morning. "His name's Brandon. Just a shy college kid starting out." That evening, Jake took her to their favorite restaurant. The kind where they could sip wine under string lights and sway to soft jazz drifting through the air. He noticed the stares, a middle-aged man with a gorgeous young woman, but he didn't care. Let them look. He'd won the heart of someone who made him feel invincible. But slowly, something began to shift. Emily became overly sweet, overly affectionate. She cooked more, cancelled nights out, and insisted they spend evenings at home. Jake appreciated the attention, but it felt off. One night, he joked, "You're acting like you're guilty of something." She laughed, brushing it off. "Don't be silly," she said, nuzzling into his chest. But he couldn't shake the feeling. Especially when her phone started buzzing more often than usual, late-night texts, work emails, or so she claimed. And she'd begun turning the screen away when reading them. Jake asked once, and she simply said, "We're slammed at work. I need to stay on top of things." He tried to believe her. He really did. Then came the night she said she had to work late. Jake sent a quick message, "Be there soon to pick you up," and headed to her office. She read the text but didn't respond. That silence hit him like a cold wind. He parked and waited, eyes glued to the glass entrance. 20 minutes passed before the door opened and Emily walked out with a young man by her side. He looked barely old enough to rent a car. They laughed, then shared a hug. Jake's heart thudded. He honked the horn, and Emily turned, waved casually, and walked over. "Who's that?" he asked as she slid into the car. "That's Brandon," she said easily. "Remember I mentioned him? The intern. He's 19. Sweet kid, but so shy. He's been staying late trying to catch up." Jake forced a smile, nodded, and drove home. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe he was being paranoid. But he knew his gut, and something didn't feel right. Over the next few weeks, Emily stayed late more often. And every time Jake picked her up, Brandon was there. Always. Once, Jake tried to bring it up, gently. The conversation spiraled into a fight so loud it shook the walls of their home. She packed a bag and checked into a hotel for a week. He promised himself he wouldn't push again. But the silence between them started to stretch. One summer evening, when Emily once again wasn't answering his texts, Jake made a decision. He drove to her office and parked. The building was nearly empty, but her light on the third floor still glowed. He took a deep breath, stepped out of the car, and climbed the stairs, each footstep echoing against the walls. He reached her hallway and paused outside her door. It was cracked open. The office was quiet, eerily quiet. Then he heard it. Soft moans. Muffled gasps. The kind of sounds that tear through your chest and set your heart racing with dread. He pushed the door open. Emily was on her knees, her shirt tossed aside, in front of Brandon. The boy's pants were halfway down. Both froze. Time did too. Brandon scrambled, fumbling to cover himself. Emily didn't even look up. She just sat there, trying to shield herself, eyes filled with horror. Jake crossed the room in seconds, grabbed Brandon by the collar. "You little," but the boy broke into tears, shaking. Something about the sight made Jake stop. He let go. Brandon bolted out the door, shoes echoing down the stairwell. Jake turned back to Emily. "Why?" he whispered, voice trembling. "I gave you everything." Emily collapsed in tears, clutching at his arm. "Jake, I don't know. It just happened. I never meant for it to go this far. I thought it was just a crush, something I'd get over," her voice cracked. "But it got out of control." They stood there, broken. Jake didn't have the strength to walk away, not that night. They cried together, the weight of betrayal too heavy to bear alone. He tried to forgive her. He really did. For 6 months, they fought more than they talked. The memory of that night haunted him, flashing behind his eyes every time she touched him. He couldn't forget. He couldn't unsee. Eventually, he asked her to leave. Filed for divorce. The papers were signed. The ring was stored away, a quiet symbol of dreams shattered. Jake went back to the life he once dreamed of, just him, a dog, and long drives with the windows down. The open road gave him peace, but not healing. That would take time. Emily moved to another city, remarried. Had a child. That marriage fell apart too. Brandon followed her there, thinking they could pick up where they left off. It fizzled within months. In the end, Emily was left alone. Jake never took pleasure in that. He didn't rejoice in her loneliness. But part of him believed it was karma. Fate has a way of making people face the love they threw away. The choices they made.